topics and opinions expressed in the following show are solely those of the hosts and their guests and not those of W4CY Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4CY Radio or its employees or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4CY Radio.
Welcome to the Ask the Expert show on W4CY Radio and Talk4 TV, where we bring you educational information from top local experts in the fields of legal, health, financial, and home improvement. Now sit back and listen to experts in family law, association law, hearing loss, business brokers, home care, along with many other topics. Now here are your hosts, Steve-O and Sophia.
Hey, good afternoon, South Florida, my hometown of South Florida. Welcome to another Ask the Expert show. We usually tell you this is our 16th year, but now it's 17 years. Ask the Experts has been running that long. I'm very proud to say, and I got to tell you, this is the first Thursday of the month, so that means Kaye Bender Rembaum, which means they have been with us for 10 years. It's amazing, and we love getting your letters. I've got a surprise for you today. There's an attorney that we actually have gotten a lot of email on. It's attorney Andrew Black telling us how much they enjoyed him. We can't tell Robert K. that. We got to keep it a secret, but good afternoon, Andrew.
Steve, thank you so much. You're flattering me.
Bro, you get fan mail. I can't believe it.
It's probably either my wife or my mom.
And he's also got a great sense of humor. You know, it's amazing. After 10 years, we're still gaining new listeners all the time. Tell people about Kaye Bender Rembaum.
Absolutely. And it's great. And I want to thank you again for having us. 10 years really flies by.
Suck up.
Yes,
this is
but it
Andrew
does.
The suck up.
It does. And I'm about to begin my 20th year working at the firm. So talk about time flying by. Absolutely. And I'm certainly proud to be with the same firm my entire working life. But our firm, we are a full service community association firm. So our client base is condominium associations, cooperatives, HOAs, and we're a full service firm, soup to nuts. So any issue that those volunteer board members face, we're certainly well equipped to assist them. We have 4 offices, Broward County, Palm Beach County, Tampa, St. Pete, and we have an Orlando office as well. And we represent communities from 5 units to, thousands. So, we're definitely specialists in this field.
You're actually one of the largest, so don't be so humble, in the state of Florida. What you all have done with that firm, and I tell you what, your clients, the board members, love your firm. And one of the things they tell us, I don't know why they write this to us, but they tell us that whenever they leave a message for you, you get with them by the end of the next day. And I got to tell you, that's not the norm.
Yeah, I think a lot of, people perhaps forget that just because we're lawyers, we're in the customer service world, right? At the end of the day, our clients are paying us for a service. And we really emphasize that here. And we hear from a lot of boards that perhaps have recently engaged our firm that one of the concerns they had from maybe their, last firm was really just a lack of responsiveness, and, we really emphasize and strive to make sure that if you're taking the time to email us, call us, you have a question that's impacting how your community runs, that we definitely get back to you in a very prompt fashion. And we hope in an easily digestible way, right? We don't want to send 20-page opinion letters with a bunch of legalese baked in there. We really want to give straightforward responses that the board can properly review and then make whatever judgment call that the board thinks is in the best interest.
I tell you, one other thing, because you're busy taking care of your clients, but I see things like this. You're like one of the few firms in Florida that this is all you do. I got to tell you, I've seen shingles hanging from law firms that go, we do bankruptcy, we do business law, we do community association law. I mean, you have a whole list of areas. But I've learned from doing the show for so long that the firms that just target in one area, like your firm does, is usually the best. Does that make sense?
It totally does. And look, the Florida statutes, whether we like it or not, they change every year. And there's whole chapters just for condominium associations, chapter 718, for HOAs, chapter 720, for cooperatives, chapter 719. So these are very specialized statutes, and there's a lot there. So, we as a firm feel like we really focus on that. We really specialize in that. And I think that does definitely serve our clients well. If a matter is impacting your community, I would like to venture to guess we've seen a version of that in our past. And that, I think, certainly can help us and guide our, our boards.
Andrew, it's amazing. I've got to say this, that your firm, and we do community association shows around the country in other states, but your firm gets the most, we get the most email, and it makes it amazing for us because we just give everybody their letters they wrote and let you answer them. And this way, it seems like when we have people send us emails in, there's so many people out there who have the same question, and we're here to answer for you. So listen, I'm so glad we have you. You're becoming a superstar on the Ask the Expert show. But let's get into the questions. What we do with the show is we ask you to email us questions in, or you can text them in. And then and I'm sorry we can't get to them all. And some of them are double questions, and we pull one out, no special reason. But we appreciate you taking the time to write these questions. And I got to tell you, and Andrew knows this, we get so many more questions than we have time to answer. So we have to call it down. But are you ready to get started?
Let's rock and roll, Steve. Let's do it.
Okay, buddy. This guy start with Keith in Hollywood. He said, I heard there is a statute that's attempting to keep the ballot harvesting in check in condo elections. Is that true?
So that's a great first question, because this is, I think, one of the most significant changes in the new law impacting condos now under Chapter 718. It was a brand new law effective July 1st. So basically hot off the press here. And what the new law, we're dealing with elections in condos and how owners vote. And it used to be that the old-fashioned way is a ballot gets mailed, the owner gets the physical ballot, they put it in an inner envelope that's unmarked, they seal that. They then put the sealed inner envelope in an outer envelope. They seal that. And then on the exterior of the outer envelope, the owner signs and writes their unit. They turn that in at the condo election. They open up and remove the outer envelopes. So that's all that's left is the inner unmarked envelope. That way, when you open up that inner envelope and you see the ballot, no one knows how that owner cast his or her vote. The change in the law now is, and I believe this is what this question is referring to, is it now allows owners, if they want, it's up to them, they could waive that entire inner and outer physical voting process, and they could simply email their ballot to a designated association email address. So there's no envelopes now. If the owner chooses to waive their vote from being a secret vote, they can waive that and say, I don't care about people knowing how I voted. I like the convenience of simply voting via email. And they can actually email their ballot, like I said, to that designated association email address. There is a statutory form that e-ballot, we just call it that. There's a form that 718 of the Florida statutes requires the e-ballot to be in. So it's not as simple as someone just using their AOL or their Gmail address to just type in, I vote for, Bill, John, and Sue. The e-ballot has to be in a certain form, but there is that option now. And this is somewhat of a long answer for the first question, but I think this is really important stuff.
Yes.
The caveat to this new e-ballot authority is if your association has already adopted what's called electronic voting, different than submitting an e-ballot just via email. Electronic voting has been in the law for a handful of years now. Electronic voting is where the association hires a third-party electronic voting software where people can vote electronically through this third-party software. If your association has authorized electronic voting, then there is no ability for owners to just do the e-ballot option. So the main takeaway from all of this changes is if you have electronic voting, you can still use electronic voting. There's no e-ballot option. However, if you have not authorized electronic voting, then an association must have a designated email address that allows owners to submit their e-ballot. So that will, it's kind of in my opinion, it's a little bit of a head scratcher, this new e-ballot thing, because a lot of the sort of anecdotal horror stories we heard about condo elections was dealing with possible fraud and, ballot harvesting where people are running around collecting a bunch of the physical ballots. It seems like there could be the potential someone using this e-ballot process to, who knows if they were the actual person sending that email or not. So it'll be interesting to see if the legislature fine tunes this to, perhaps shield from some of the possible fraud.
A lot of statutes went into effect July 1st.
Yeah, so that was one of the main ones. Absolutely.
Yes. How's your feelings on the new statutes? Happy?
It's sort of a mixed bag, and we have attorneys in our firm that actually go to Tallahassee every year. They're part of a lobbying group to really contribute our knowledge to hopefully come up with some more common sense statutory changes. For better or for worse, your audience out there may be aware the condo lobby isn't as strong as perhaps the bank lobby or the insurance lobby. So it's somewhat of an uphill battle, but we really do try to, lend our, knowledge This year, there's some head scratchers out there. I'll be gentle and say it like that. One of the head scratchers is for a condominium, for the annual meeting, which is really a meeting of the owners, right? It's where the owners vote. That's when the election happens. For the annual meeting, the new law says a quorum of the board must be physically present there. And we've sort of scratched our heads figuring out, why was this added? There's really no impact whether a quorum, which is, again, just a fancy word for the minimum number of board members that usually need to be present for a board meeting, not a meeting of the owners. So it's really a little bit, like I said, a head scratcher, why a quorum of the board being physically present has any impact at all regarding how the annual meeting is being held. But having said that, that's one of the new changes out there. So I definitely encourage everyone. We have lots of wonderful and free information on our site, kbrlegal.com, that talks about these new legislative changes.
We just got a text in from McDevil's Advocate. Wants to know, what legal grounds can an association fining committee use in defining what a dirty roof is? A white tile roof with the same I guess misspelled, but same as the gray shingles are certainly would be viewed differently. We get a lot of questions about roofs.
Yeah, I mean, this sounds like a fairly fact-specific question. I guess they want to know who determines whether a violation exists or not. And, obviously a board should be acting in the most objective fashion possible. Dealing with whether something is dirty or not, naturally, there's a little bit of a subjective flair to that, but I think it would ultimately be judged on what a reasonableness standard is, right? What would an objectively prudent person, if they were staring at that roof, whether he or she would feel like it doesn't match the aesthetic standards or not? From a legal perspective, in my view, the board does have the authority. They can use their reasonable business judgment to say, we think this roof, doesn't meet what our maintenance standards are, and they could certainly approve a fine. Just a quick reminder, a monetary fine is not a final fine until there is that hearing in front of an independent committee of other unit owners. And it's that independent committee that has the final authority to either confirm or reject a monetary fine that was levied by a board.
Okay. And by the way, one of the things I wanted to mention at the beginning of the show, what is so great about your firm is education. Education is so important to your firm. Besides just customer service, you've got a lot of classes coming up this month. Can you tell people what they are?
Absolutely. And I totally agree. And even by the number of calls and emails and texts you get, there's an appetite out there, right? People want to learn more. And we certainly love the opportunity to sort of give back and give all these wonderful and free courses. Really up until the holiday time, we are jam-packed. Next week, December the 8th, we have a great guest restrictions and screening course at 12 o'clock. That's December 8th. December 10th, in the Tampa St. Pete area, this is an in-person. This is not on Zoom. This is in person. We have a wonderful legal update course. That's December 10th. That's live in the, like I said, the Tampa St. Pete area. That's at 8:30 a.m. until 10:30 a.m. Also, December 10th, very busy day. We have 4 webinar courses back to back to back to back. So we start with covenant enforcement at 10 a.m. The next one at 11:15 a.m. is elections. We're in election season for most communities, so that's a great course. Then at 1 o'clock, we have a course dealing with fair housing matters, specifically assistance animals and service animals and all that fun stuff that if you're on a board, no doubt you've dealt with some of those problems in the past. And then at 2:15, we have a great conflict of interest course dealing with when can a board perhaps hire a vendor that maybe a board member or a family of a board member has some sort of financial involvement in. And then the following week, December the 16th, we have an HOA board member certification course. That's from 12 to 2:30 p.m. And the very next day, December the 17th, we have a condo board member education course from 12 to 1:30. I encourage everyone, that was a mouthful, definitely go to our website, kbrlegal.com. We have a tab where there's a calendar. All of our courses are right there. You can sign up. Like I said, of course, it's free. And we hope to see some of your audience there. So yeah, we have a jam-packed month.
Yeah, you do. I just want to tell people I have lost my glasses. So I'm trying to read the chat line, and it's kind of difficult today. So we might have to do it next month. It's just I have looked everywhere for them. But we're going to go to a commercial. Andrew, tell people how they can, what's the main number they can call for any of the offices?
Absolutely. It's 800-974-0680. 800-974-0680. That's our main office number, and you can reach any of our offices.
And you've got the greatest website with the most educational information on it. Give them their website.
Absolutely. Yes, it's kbrlegal.com. So kbrlegal.com. And yeah, we have all of our we have legal articles up there. You can sign up for our free upcoming courses and lots of good information.
So we're going to go to break. This is always the first Thursday of the month at 5 o'clock Eastern time. And then we have our Tampa show is always the last Tuesday of the month, also at 5 o'clock Eastern time. And then we have our Orlando show, all with Kaye Bender Rembaum. It's the last Thursday of the month at 5 p.m. We're going to go to a short break. We'll be right back with all your questions.
Kaye Bender Rembaum is a full-service community association law firm dedicated to the representation of community associations throughout Florida. On kbrlegal.com, you can learn more about their offices in Pompano Beach, Palm Beach Gardens, Orlando, Tampa, as well as throughout Miami-Dade by appointment. Several Kaye Bender Rembaum attorneys are board-certified specialists in condominium and plan development law and assist clients with all matters of community association legal issues while keeping them up to date on new developments that affect their associations. Kaye Bender Rembaum is also a well-known provider of free legal education for managers and board members. Contact Kaye Bender Rembaum today by calling 800-974-0680. That's 800-974-0680 to reach any of their locations. You can also visit them online at kbrlegal.com or write to them at info@kbrlegal.com.
And we are back with the Ask the Expert show on W4CY Radio and Talk4 TV with your hosts, Steve-O, Sophia, and their expert guests.
We are back. We're here with attorney Andrew Black of the Kaye Bender Rembaum Community Association law firm with their main office here in South Florida. We're going to get back to your questions. This is kind of an unusual question, Andrew. This is from Kathy in Boca. She wants to know 4 of 5 of our board of directors want to remove the president to director and a director to president, as the current president doesn't consult the board for board decisions. How do we get this on the board's agenda?
Yeah, so that's an unfortunate fact pattern. It's not uncommon. I mean, we deal with lots of boards where perhaps a single board member goes rogue, as we like to say, and won't play nice in the, with the other persons serving with them. The positive news is for this board is that just because that person is the president, there's still only one vote, right? So if it's a 5-person board and 4 of those 5 want to take certain action, those 4 absolutely have the authority and they can. And one of those things they can do is what's called reorganize the officers' roles. The officer roles, president, vice president, treasurer, and a majority of that board. So if it's 5 board members, at least 3, they can absolutely schedule a meeting of the board. They could have an agenda item to read reorganization of officers, and at least 3 out of that 5 can certainly vote to reorganize, remove that person from serving as president and appoint another director to serve in that officer role. That president, once have their president hat removed, they still stay on the board. They're just no longer serving in that officer role. So you aren't stuck there. You could certainly 4 out of the 5 can certainly take action. And it sounds like that if I was in that person's shoes, that's something I would definitely consult with whoever the association's attorney is, so he or she can help guide the majority of the board through that fact pattern.
When we first started 10 years ago, I got to tell you, probably the first 5, we got so many questions about pets, and
right.
We don't get as many anymore. But here's one from Aaron in Boca Raton. He says, is there a no pet community law?
Right. Yeah, I think we still get a good amount of sort of pet questions, but I think most people, this is a horrible pun, but the cat's out of the service animals, out of the bag with service animals and emotional support animals. So and we teach a whole course on just this topic, but the short answer is even if your governing documents expressly prohibit animals, there's federal and state fair housing laws that protect disabled owners from housing discrimination. And one of the protected classes under the fair housing laws is someone that not only may have perhaps a physical impairment, but a emotional impairment as well. So if someone out there is dealing with an emotional impairment, certainly there's health providers out there that they can go see. And oftentimes those health providers will essentially write a prescription, for lack of another word, for that person to have a dog to assist them dealing with whatever emotional impairment they have. And it's a pretty common practice. There's certain requirements that health provider must state. They must identify that this person is in fact disabled and that disability impacts a major life function, and the manner in which, for instance, that emotional support animal will help that person. But if you get a letter and you're on a board and it's referring to emotional support animal or perhaps a service animal, which is more, there's some training involved with service animals. If you're on a board and you receive a letter from an owner or from an owner's health provider referring to that type of request, definitely get with your association attorney, because you don't want to inadvertently run afoul of the fair housing law. So the days of no pet communities, in my view, are pretty much gone, because there's embedded the fair housing laws, the ability for disabled people to have assistance animals.
Hey, this next question is even one I could answer. This is from Tracy in Boynton. She wants to know, if we have 5 board members, must all 5 have to be certified?
That's a good softball. I don't mind those. The short answer is yes. There's no exclusion that only a certain number of board members do. If you're on your board, the laws for both HOAs under 720 and condos under Chapter 718 is all board members need to be certified. And the goal is, it's a volunteer job and it can be very hard. I always joke the pay's not very good, right? 0. But they want board members to really have some basic working knowledge of how the laws work. So every board member, within 90 days of you getting onto your board, there's a board member certification requirement, and that would apply to all persons serving.
Here's one we kind of covered. Chad and Boynton. Is a visitor with emotional support dog required to advise the association or property management in advance of arriving with the dog? The tenant's lease does not allow pets or dogs.
Okay, yeah, this is sort of an interesting spin on the question before. From what I'm hearing, this is not the owner or the tenant. It's like a friend or a guest who's coming to see that unit occupant, and they have a dog, and it might be a no pet community. So practically, this can be tough for enforcement, because you're not going to stand at the front of the community and say you're not allowed in. So usually our practical guidance, if there's a friend, someone just coming to see the owner, we generally advise give that guest like a one-time free pass, but you should definitely notify the owner or the tenant in writing that there was someone came to see you on this day. They had a dog. As you know, dogs are not allowed here. So if they're requesting that it's a service animal or an emotional support animal, before they bring that dog back a second time, they must provide the documentation from their health provider to support that they have that health related need. So we advise one-time pass, but definitely notify all of the parties that before it comes back again, that they do what they're supposed to do.
Here's another question. Please discuss the new law regarding, irrespective of a Zoom meeting ability, a physical attendance location for members must still be provided.
Yeah, so this is one of the new changes, Steve, that we were talking about. I always joke, it's really not funny, but before 2020 and Corona and COVID and all of the lockdowns, I never heard of Zoom. I really never knew what Zoom was. all of a sudden, obviously, people couldn't, travel. Zoom became this huge popular tool, and most boards, rightfully so, we were in a state of emergency for so long that meetings were held virtually, only by Zoom. And 21, 2022, 2023, 24, 25, lots of boards are like, I like this Zoom thing. Let's continue to have meetings via Zoom. So the law was recently changed for condos, but I think if push came to shove, really HOA should follow this as well. As of July 1st, your meetings, if you want to offer Zoom or some other virtual software as an option for owners to attend, you have to have a physical location as well. So we call that a hybrid, right?
Great idea.
Physical plus Zoom. So in our view, it wouldn't be proper to have Zoom only. If you're meeting of your board and you're in a condo, in our opinion, it would not be proper to do the board meeting just via Zoom. Should make sure you have a actual physical location that owners can go. And I guess the thinking is not every owner may be technologically inclined, and there should be an ability for someone to physically go somewhere and be able to, see what's happening. Now, that does not mean, in my view, that you can't set a laptop up in the physical location, pull down a screen and broadcast the Zoom, there. But you need to have some physical space that an owner can go and watch and speak.
A homeowner brought it to our attention that we had not taken the continuing ed classes on 6/30/25. Should we vote again on agenda items since we were suspended to avoid legal challenges?
Yeah, so that's an interesting question. This is when, like I said, all board members need to be certified. The positive news is the lack of certification doesn't impact the whether an action is valid or not. So as long as you're a duly elected or duly appointed board, those actions you took, even if you weren't certified, in my view, would still be valid. But you obviously want to comply with the law and make sure you get your, certification done. But in my view, it wouldn't impact prior action that board took.
Laurie in Palm Beach, I'm really enjoying the show. Opening an online account with the DBPR, do you have to create and maintain an online account in an electric format? What information will they require?
Yeah, this is another new change for condo associations. As of July 1st, the DBPR, which is the state agency that regulates condos, they're in a mode right now where they want to collect information. They want to know information about the condominiums out there throughout the state of Florida. So there was a deadline of October 1st, 2025, that if you're a condominium association, you have to set up an account with the DBPR. They want to know the condo's name, the names of your board, your manager information. They want to know your assessment information, right? How much are you paying? If you pay monthly, quarterly, if you have any special assessments. And if you're 3 habitable stories or taller, they want to know about your SERS study. So, it's not perhaps a complicated process. They kind of walk you through it, but it is just another administrative task that falls onto the shoulders of these volunteer members of a board. Certainly, if you have a property management firm or a property manager, certainly they should be able to assist you with that and take some of the burden away from you. But yes, if you're a condo association, as of October 1st, you are required to have a DBPR online account. They're tracking us. They want to know lots of information.
Here's another condo question. And please, when you write us these questions, please let us know if you're an HOA or a condo. It really does help. Howard and Davey, do the bylaws supersede a rule book in a condominium association?
Right. So that's an interesting one. So when I say something is document specific, I'm referring to the governing docs, right? And the board rules are on the lowest rung of the hierarchy. Okay. So the bylaws, and you have articles of incorporation, a declaration, those are all above rules. So it goes DEC, articles, bylaws, rules. So board made rules, if there's a conflict between the bylaws and board made rules, in my view, the bylaws would be the controlling authority there. And that's certainly something, if you're on a board and you're thinking about amending your board made rules, before you vote on them, it's probably a prudent idea to have your council take a look to make sure there's nothing outside of the rulemaking authority of your board, because you don't want a rule to conflict with one of the other governing documents.
Chris in Palm Beach Gardens. I really enjoy your show. This has got to be one of your cousins. It's always so informative. Can a unit owner that has restricted occupancy per the bylaws in his unit ask another unit owner to register his parent so the family member can live in the association? This unit owner is trying to circumvent cause he's already in violation of the occupancy. What if the board doesn't have a violation committee? It's difficult for people to establish my association.
All right. So yeah, there's a few things happening. I'll take the last one first, which is just because you don't have an independent committee, whether you call it a violation committee or a grievance committee or a fining, that independent committee is only if you want to levy a monetary fine or perhaps suspend someone's use rights. It doesn't mean that you can't enforce what your restrictions are. Okay. You can still send demands out. If they don't comply, you can even possibly file a lawsuit. So that independent committee is just one enforcement option, right? As far as it sounds like an owner is trying to pull a fast one and have his friend sort of say that the other family member is living with him or her. At the end of the day, an owner has to act in a good faith and honest way. So if that family member is not, in fact, living where they say they are, then obviously that wouldn't fly. And in my opinion, the association could certainly undertake enforcement.
That was a mouthful. See, this is why when you stand in for Robert, you're like this pitch hitter comes in and hits a home run.
Oh, thanks.
The way you explain everything is, I know that our listeners really appreciate it. Jack in Boca wants to know, is it true the board must take a vote on each fine before it's imposed on a resident?
Okay. Yeah, we're getting a handful of sort of fining questions. So in my view, the statute requires essentially a two-step process where the first step is the board approves levying a fine. John Smith broke some rule. They're going to levy a fine against John Smith. Part two of this process is that fine is not final until John Smith, as the owner, has due process, which in the community association world means they have the ability to attend a hearing before the independent committee. And it's that independent committee that has the final say whether to confirm or reject the fine that it was imposed by the board. In my view, it's somewhat in the gray area for the board just to adopt like a blanket fining schedule without having some corporate action to document that John Smith, the board has approved the fine against John Smith. So in my view, it's cleaner, less subject to challenge for the board to approve a specific fine against a specific home.
Talking about Zoom, here's Ben in Coral Springs regarding Zoom. Board members must remain on to maintain a quorum. We often have a board member leave during the meeting, often noticeable when there is a roll call vote and none answers.
Interesting. So whether the meeting's on Zoom and now, like I said, certainly if you're in a condo, you need to have a hybrid meeting, right? There's the need to be a physical location, but board members can attend board meetings, even ones with a physical location. They can still attend via speakerphone, Zoom. Regarding quorum, most, I shouldn't say all, but the vast majority of governing documents say that a quorum of the board for a board meeting is a majority of the board, right? 50% plus one. So if you have a 5-person board, you need 3 there to have quorum. 7-person board, you need 4. 9-person board, you have to have 5, right? And that's the extent of my math. But in my view, you can't conduct the business of the association unless quorum of the board is present. So to me, there would be certainly subject to challenge if the board is taking action while quorum of the board is not there. So if a bunch of board members get up and leave and you're left with less than a majority of the board at the meeting, to me, that would be problematic for less than a quorum to try to take binding action on behalf of the association.
I want to get this question in. Someone just wrote in, does Kaye Bender Rembaum do property management?
No. We're a full service law firm, but our client base is associations, right? Obviously, we work with management companies because our client as the association often hires them, and we work hand in hand, and we have lots of wonderful management company partners out there, but we don't represent them. We don't have any financial interest in any property management companies. They're just the authorized agent of our association clients.
Well, this show goes by so fast. All of our Kaye Bender shows are 50 minutes long and they go by so fast. Let's give everybody the website and the phone number one more time.
Absolutely. The phone number is 800-974-0680. The website is kbrlegal.com. Again, kbrlegal.com. And please, we certainly encourage everyone. We have lots of wonderful courses, like I said, upcoming, and we hope to have you sign up.
Bro, I'll break bread with you anytime. You're the best.
Great, Steve. Great hanging with you on this Thursday night. Thank you.
Have a wonderful holiday, a happy new year, and hey, maybe I'll see you again next month.
Same to you. Thanks, Steve.
Okay,
it was great.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That's our Kaye Bender Rembaum. God, incredible community association law firm. 800-974-0680. They're one of the biggest, and they're definitely one of the best. That's going to do it for us today. Thank you, Juan. Always does such a great job. And we'll be back in with you next week with more Ask the Experts.
Thanks for tuning in today to the Ask the Expert show on W4CY Radio and Talk4 TV. Tune in next week and every week to hear more from our experts on personal injury, insurance, air condition repairs, estate planning, Medicare, and many other topics in the areas of legal, health, financial, and home improvement. See you next week.